GCE in primary school. As Lee said, I sort of end up in a lot of primary schools, and I think one of the sort of unsung issues at the moment is every school I go into, the teachers are stressed, and I mean, we're talking about teachers leaving the profession at record levels. As someone who's going to be in teaching for the foreseeable future, how do you plan to deal with that and make life easier for teachers as well as securing good quality provision?
Just as a matter of interest, Joe, hold the microphone for a second. What do you think is the biggest cause of stress that teachers are saying? Some teachers are saying to me that actually the process of audit is becoming a massive stress for them. I don't mean inspection, but I mean, you know, filling in forms about being, you know, keeping the records and all of that. I'd met some teachers the other day who said that to me. But are there, I mean, is it class sizes are of course rising? That is a big problem.
To be honest, personally, class size is I mean, 30's fine.
Yeah.
24 would be lovely, but,
sure.
but
Sure.
30's fine. But I mean, I could probably stand at the front and make a list of issues which are very stressful.
Yeah.
But,
I'm sure the words Michael Gove would be part of it. Yeah, he's not had a great run, really, has he? But to be honest, I think a lot of it, the changes in levelling systems, the accountability is now on the teacher instead of the child, which may be right, may be wrong. It should be a mixture of the two. But it's, I mean, there's a lot of pressure from parents and stuff like that from the teacher side. Okay, thanks, Joe. I'm going to skip through those, and I'm going to get more people in. So I'll go in reverse order. Joe, your question. Look, I think there is a point here, and actually it's not just true in teaching, it's true in the police, and I'll come to the police in a sec. I think there is an issue here about the sense of kind of working with the professions or having a war on the professions. And in a way, Michael Gove was quite happy to say it was a war on teachers and, you know, all of that. He used these phrases like the educational blob and all that. And it's just, I don't think it really helps, because I think it just makes teachers feel beaten down. And I think, by the way, there's a lesson for all governments, which is true not just in education but in health, which is changes in Whitehall which look like a good idea end up on the ground as a nightmare, because it's like change after change after change, year after year after year, and it's incredibly disruptive for kids. And so you've got to weigh up the costs of change. You know, it might be a good idea, but you've got to always weigh up the costs of change, because if the costs of change outweigh the benefits of change, you shouldn't be doing it. And so I think that would be my answer to you. And also investing in education. I mean, this class sizes issue, got 100,000 kids being taught infants being taught in class sizes above 30 now. And it's going to get far worse. And that's why we're saying we're actually going to use the money that this government would spend on future free schools to actually keep class sizes down to 30 or under. Olivia, your question is important. I mentioned some of the things we're going to do in relation to housing. One other thing is a national register around landlords, so that we can actually enforce decent standards. Because at the moment, it is such a sellers or renters market that, you know, so many students and young people end up in incredibly substandard accommodation and charge massively over the odds. And so, look, you know, we've got to take this issue of regulation of the private rented sector seriously, and we will. Matt, number 2, who asked a question about policing, neighbourhood policing. We've actually outlined plans to protect neighbourhood policing. We've shown how we can save £800 million and protect frontline neighbourhood policing. I think it's important. I think it's important for safety on our streets, and frankly, but I think lots of police feel quite beaten down by what is happening to the police force. And of course, you know, David Cameron has these extreme plans on spending, which will be very difficult for policing. Matt, number 1, you asked a question about funding. Let me take an example of tuition fees, and we've shown how that will be paid for. It's going to be paid for largely from clamping down on pensions tax relief for the highest earners. I think it's the right thing to do, because I think it's the right thing to do to guarantee all of our young people that we reduce the debts that they're going to go into the world with. On Bethan, now here's something you wouldn't hear me say all the time. I think the National Citizen Service is a good innovation, and it was introduced by this government, and we're going to keep it. And, you know, look, sometimes in politics, you know, you always criticise your opponents, but when your opponents do something which actually I think has worked, it has worked, and I think we should keep it, and we'd like to build on it, and we're not going to do what UKIP are doing, which is to abolish it. The question I was asked about accountability,
I'm sort of tempted to say answers on a postcard, because I think this is a big issue. And look, I'm very happy to continue the conversation about how we do this, because I do want to be accountable to young people. I think it's an incredibly important thing that if I'm Prime Minister in 3 weeks' time, not just in relation to young people, but more generally, you remain accountable. I'm going to do this thing called the People's Question Time, which I do around the country at the moment, and I'm going to do it in the Palace of Westminster regularly on a Wednesday, alongside Prime Minister's Questions, which is a question and answer session with the public. Now, you might ask, why am I doing that? It's partly to remain accountable. It's partly to raise the standards of behaviour at Prime Minister's Question Time. But I think there's this funny story, which is that, for a long time there was this debate in Parliament about whether the Youth Parliament should sit in Westminster, should sit in the House of Commons. And I remember when I first became an MP, I talked to one of the old lags, who I won't name, and said, do you think it might be a good idea to have the Youth Parliament sit in the House of Commons just once a year? And he said, that would be terrible. Think how they'd behave. And actually, it's a really interesting thing, because now that the Youth Parliament sits once a year in the House of Commons, it behaves far better than MPs behave. I mean, it's like no comparison. So look, I think we've got to find ways in which I remain accountable. I mean, young people's question times, other ways, and a continuing way that we can do that, because it's about being held accountable for your promises and about developing policy with young people. So again, I'm very open to ideas. Let me take another round. Yeah, there's a gentleman on the end. No, sorry, the guy behind you. But yeah, since you asked, you as well, if you like.
Hi, I'm Lewis. I go to Lincoln Christ Hospital School, and I was actually Lincoln's youth member of Parliament last year.
Did you sit in the youth Parliament?
Yeah, I was in the recent House of Commons meeting.
How did it go?
Yeah, it was okay. No one was there.
Which side were you
Angry
on?
Birds on their phones for once. So.
Which side were you on?
When you walk in, I was on the right side.
Depends which side you walk in from.
Yeah, of course.
Was it the opposition benches, do you know, or the government benches?
The opposition benches.
Right, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm a bit fed up with those, actually.
Of course. So I'm basically obsessed with equal opportunity at the minute, and I don't think that equal opportunity can be achieved without certain things happening. I think that if you were elected into a Labour government, it would be a bold Labour government, and would it make the bold move to abolish private schools and public schools so that we have a proper meritocratic society? Or even if not that, would you make the bold move to abolish grammar schools, which, according to Ofsted, are stuffed full of middle-class kids?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm going to disappoint you, I'm afraid. Okay, the gentleman in the green who's behind. Oh, actually, I said, and then the guy at the front too. Yeah.
Hi there. Hello, Ben Bryant from Vice News.
From where?
Vice News.
All right. What does Vice News do?
We make films. We write stories. So one of the criticisms of this election campaign has been how tightly controlled it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you yourself have only done one real walkabout with voters so far. Don't you think that all of this stage management bullshit is particularly alienating for young people?
I don't think you count as stage managed, do you, Ben?
We stuck in.
Right, now I did promise the gentleman in front of you.
Hi there, Ryan Willett from De Montfort University. Recently, sort of pledge that was made by the Labour government, and that is why I'm voting Labour, is the increase in LGBT plus rights. Would this extend to universities to properly educate the masses and stop discrimination from happening to LGBT plus members?
Do you just say a little bit about this? Discrimination going on at universities that you're conscious of, aware of?
Oh no, well, I'm not aware of it, but just to sort of educate people into them, well, if positive or negative discrimination prevents it from happening?
Okay, it's a good question, Ryan. Thank you. I'm looking for some gender balance. Yeah, there's a lady here.
Hi, my name's Katie. I'm currently a teacher, and one of the biggest problems we have is the constant change, as you alluded to earlier. What assurances can you give about the A-level reforms that have been thrusted upon us hastily by the Tories will be stopped and reviewed by the Labour government?
Just say a bit more about these. I mean, it's quite hard to keep up with them because they seem to be changing their mind every sort of few months. Just say a bit more about this. This is about the AS level and the A level separation.
Yes, going to 2 years.
Right, I'm going to bring Liam in to say something about that. Yep, there's a question at lady over here.
Hi, my name's Becky. I'm a student here at BG. You mentioned earlier about bringing more awareness to youth mental health, and I was wondering if you could go into that a bit more. Is that going to be kind of a re-education of teachers? Because obviously, as been said, there's a lot of pressure on them at the moment, or introducing services. Just wondering what.
Do you have experience here around these issues?
No, I had experiences at school.
And they were not great?
No.
What do you think would have made the biggest difference?
I think either of the things said. I mean, some teachers took my issues seriously and a lot of them didn't, but we didn't have the facilities to go to talk about that kind of thing anyway, so it was up to the teachers to do something and they didn't. So
okay, and there's a lady at the back. Thanks, Becky, for that question.
Hi, my name's Iona. I'm a solicitor. I work in criminal defence and prison law. The current government has attacked the legal aid system dramatically. It's affected a lot of people who I work with. Young people who I work with in this area have been leaving the profession to go and work in the more traditional conveyancing, civil litigation area. So really the question is about what Labour will do in terms of transforming legal aid. Will that agenda be continued with dual contracts for criminal solicitors? And also, if it is continued with, there's no incentive for young people there could be plenty of young, talented people that could come into the profession. There's no incentive for them to do that when the people who are currently working in it don't have any job security and are having to accept pay cuts. Just to carry on doing the work that they want to do because they've got a social conscience.
Okay, thanks. That's it for that. Oh, there's a lady there. Go on, I'll take this lady, then that's it for this round.
Hiya, my name's Charlotte.
Hi.
I'm from NCS, but I'm also a young carer. And I was just wondering what the Labour government are planning to do to help young carers. In such as like universities. I plan to go to university in 2016, so I was just wondering if there's any extra support like being put in place.
What would make the biggest difference to you, Charlotte?
I think just more recognition from like the lecturers and stuff, and for people to be aware of how much young carers do. Because at the minute I'm at college studying level 3. So it's quite hard struggling like with assignments and looking after my mum and dad. So.
And there's not sort of the flexibility that you would want to see to sort of take account of that, if you like.
Not really. Like it's quite demanding how much I've got to do.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing
Thank
the
you
question
very
with us, Liam. Do you want to say something about the educational reforms, and if you can pick up on any other points you'd like to?
So one of the biggest issues that came up from young people actually is that this constant chopping and change in the exam system just makes it harder and harder to succeed. And so what a lot of young people said to us is, look, it's as if they just want us to fail. So we've obviously got to make changes carefully because we don't want there to be a kind of teach to the test kind of culture taking shape. But one of the things that we've said very clearly is that we've got to recouple AS levels and A levels because actually we need an exam system that actually gives children what they need in terms of the content, but actually helps them succeed and not just persist with this kind of instability that just makes it harder and harder to be the best that you can.
Okay, let me deal with these other questions. Lewis, your question, I'm not going to abolish private schools or grammar schools, sorry to disappoint you. However, look, I think the key thing for us is raise the standards at state schools. And I know we can do this, but look, we did it in government. If you think about just take London schools, right? I went to a comprehensive in London in the 1980s. It was a good comprehensive. But when we